Admiral Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair and stared at the alien faces around the massive circular table. 3 years. 3 long years of the same boring meetings. The same stupid questions. The same insulting comments about his people. The chamber was huge, built to make visitors feel small. Bright lights came down from the ceiling like spotlights in a prison. The walls were covered with symbols from 1,000 different worlds. Each symbol represented a species that belonged to the Galactic Council. None of them were human symbols. Dr. Lisa Carter sat next to Jake. She was the smartest person he knew, but even she looked tired. Her brown hair was pulled back tight, and her green eyes showed the strain of years of failed talks. She had files full of data about human achievements, but the aliens never wanted to hear about them. Ambassador Kyle Davis was on Jake's other side. Kyle was good with words, better than most politicians back on Earth, but even his smooth talking couldn't get through to these creatures. They had made up their minds about humans long ago. The current speaker was Zethkalar, a tall reptile with yellow scales and cold black eyes. He represented the Vorthan Confederation, one of the most powerful groups in the council. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together when he spoke. The humans continue to demonstrate their aggressive nature, Zethkalar said, his forked tongue flicking out between words. Their military expansion in the Outer Rim sectors shows they cannot be trusted with full membership. Jake's hands tightened into fists under the table. The Outer Rim conflicts. His friends had died in those battles. Good people who gave their lives protecting human colonies from raiders and pirates. The same raiders that these council species ignored when they attacked human settlements. High Arbiter Quinthal floated above the table in the center of the room. The ancient being looked like a giant crystal with lights moving inside it. Quinthal was supposed to be neutral, but Jake could see the way the light patterns moved when humans spoke. Even the mediator thought they were beneath notice. The human military actions were defensive, Kyle said, his voice calm and professional. We only fought to protect our civilian populations from unprovoked attacks. A sound like breaking glass came from Quinthal. It was supposed to be laughter. Young species always claim defense when they show their true nature. The council has seen this pattern before. Jake felt his jaw clench. Young species. They always used that phrase. As if being newer to space travel somehow made humans less worthy of respect. It didn't matter that human technology was advancing faster than anyone had ever seen. It didn't matter that human scientists had solved problems that had stumped alien researchers for centuries. Perhaps, said a new voice, smooth and musical, we should consider a different approach. This came from Lyrandel, who looked like a tall blue elf with silver hair. Our people, the Celestials, were known for their wisdom. The humans have shown remarkable adaptability. Their scientific contributions have been ... useful. Jake almost laughed. Useful. Human research had revolutionized galactic medicine. Human engineers had designed new faster-than-light drives that cut travel time in half. Human farmers had developed crops that could grow on worlds previously thought too harsh for life. But it was just useful to them. Zethkalar's tail whipped back and forth, a sign of anger in his species. Useful tools do not require council membership. A hammer does not sit at the table with the carpenter. That was it. Jake had heard enough. He could feel the anger building in his chest like a fire. 3 years of this. 3 years of being talked about like humans were pets or property. 3 years of watching good people die while these creatures debated whether humans deserved basic respect. You know what? Jake said, standing up slowly. His chair scraped against the floor, and the sound echoed in the huge chamber. Every alien face turned toward him. I think we're done here. Lisa looked up at him with wide eyes. Kyle put a hand on Jake's arm, trying to pull him back down. But Jake shook him off. Admiral Morrison, Quinto's voice boomed from above. "You will follow proper protocol." "No," Jake said simply. "I don't think I will." He walked around the table, his boots clicking on the smooth floor. The aliens watched him like he was a dangerous animal that might attack at any moment. Maybe that's what they thought he was. "For 3 years, we've sat in this room," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly in the silence. 3 years of listening to you debate whether humans deserve to exist in your little club. 3 years of being told we're too young, too violent, too different. He stopped in front of Zethkalar's section of the table. The reptile's black eyes stared at him without blinking. "You want to know what's funny?" Jake continued. "While you've been sitting here arguing about whether we're good, enough for you, human colonies have been growing. Human trade routes have been expanding. Human scientists have been making discoveries that benefit everyone in this galaxy." Lisa stood up now, her face determined. She opened one of her files and pulled out a data pad. "Human medical research has increased average lifespan across 17 species by 30%, she said, her voice clear and strong. "Human agricultural techniques have ended food shortages on 43 worlds. Human defensive technologies have protected over 200 colonies from pirate attacks. And what do we get for it?" Jake asked, spreading his arms wide. "We get to sit here and beg for the privilege of being your servants. Because that's what supervised membership means, isn't it? We do the work, you get the credit." Ambassador Davis was standing now too. His politician smile was gone, replaced by something harder. "The human government has authorized me to make the following statement," he said formally. "The Terran Federation hereby withdraws from all membership negotiations with the Galactic Council. We will no longer participate in these proceedings." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Aliens spoke in a dozen different languages, all sounding surprised and angry. Quintel's lights flashed rapidly, which Jake had learned meant confusion. "You cannot simply leave," Zethkalar hissed. "No species walks away from the Council." Jake smiled for the first time in months. It wasn't a nice smile. "Watch us." He turned and walked toward the exit, Lisa and Kyle following behind him. At the door, he stopped and looked back at the chaos he had left behind. "When you're ready to treat us as equals instead of tools," Jake said, "you know where to find US. Until then, humanity has better things to do." The door closed behind them with a soft hiss, cutting off the angry alien voices. Jake felt lighter than he had in years. Finally, they were free. Captain Ben Miller stared at the distress signal flashing on his screen. The UES Pathfinder had been exploring the outer regions of the Kepler sector when the emergency broadcast reached them. Someone was in trouble, and they were calling for help. "Sir, it's a Yix-Andra colony ship," said Lieutenant Commander Sarah Brooks from her station. "They're under attack by hive raiders. 17,000 civilians on board, including children." Ben's jaw tightened. 6 months ago, he would have ordered an immediate rescue. The Pathfinder was fast and well armed. They could drive off the raiders and save those lives. But things had changed since Admiral Morrison walked out of the council chambers. "How many raider ships?" Ben asked. 3 heavy cruisers and a carrier," Sarah replied. "The colony ship won't last much longer. Their shields are failing." Chief Engineer Kate Sullivan looked up from her console. "Sir, we could take them. The new weapon systems are operational. Those hive ships wouldn't know what hit them." Ben knew she was right. Kate had been working day and night on the ship upgrades. Human technology had advanced rapidly in the past 6 months. The weapons, shields, and engines on the Pathfinder were better than anything the galaxy had seen before. But Ben also knew his orders. The new protocols were clear. Humanity was no longer the galaxy's rescue service. "Lieutenant Brooks, record everything," Ben said quietly. "Full tactical scan of the engagement." Note the hive ship configurations and weapon types. Then prepare to jump. Sir? Sarah's voice showed her confusion. We're not helping them? We're following orders, Ben said, though the words tasted bitter in his mouth. The Ixandra are council members. The council doesn't recognize human authority. Therefore, any human military action in council space would be considered an act of war. Kate slammed her hand on her console. Those are innocent people down there. I know, Ben said, but our government was very clear. We're not the galaxy's police force anymore. The Pathfinder's engines hummed as they prepared to jump to faster than light speed. On the main screen, Ben could see the Yuxandra ship burning. Pieces of hull were breaking off as the hive weapons tore through their defenses. Jump complete, Sarah reported. Her voice was flat and professional, but Ben could see the anger in her eyes. 3 hours later, they received confirmation that the colony ship had been destroyed. 17,000 lives lost while a human ship capable of saving them jumped away. Meanwhile, on the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, Kate's sister Amy was overseeing a very different kind of project. Commander Ryan Torres walked through the massive shipyard, watching as hundreds of workers assembled the new fleet. How many ships will be ready by the end of the month? Ryan asked. Amy Sullivan wiped grease from her hands with a dirty cloth. She looked tired but satisfied. 12 heavy cruisers, 30 destroyers, and 6 carriers, all with the new tech. Ryan nodded. The human military was growing fast. Very fast. New recruits were joining every day, many of them people who had lost friends or family to alien raiders while the council debated and delayed. What about the planetary defenses? Ryan asked. Already installed on 47 colonies, Amy replied. The new shield generators can stop anything short of a planet killer. And the orbital weapons platforms ... She smiled grimly. Let's just say no one will be surprising our people again. Ryan walked to the observation window and looked out at the construction. Massive ships were taking shape in the zero-gravity assembly bays. Each one was a masterpiece of human engineering, designed not for exploration or diplomacy, but for war. Think they'll come asking for help soon? Amy asked. They already have, Ryan said. 3 times this week. Council delegations keep showing up at the border, requesting permission to enter human space for urgent diplomatic discussions. And they get the same answer every time. Humanity is currently unavailable for diplomatic contact. Far from the shipyards and military bases, in the peaceful trading stations of human space, a different kind of change was happening. Trader. Vexkoth was not human, but he had been dealing with humans for 5 years. He was one of the few aliens who understood what was really going on. Business is good, he told his partner Nalthessa as they counted their profits. Better than ever. Nalthessa was a refugee from a species the council had deemed culturally incompatible. Her people had been denied aid and protection for decades. Now they worked in human space, free and prosperous. The humans treat us fairly, she said. No long applications. No cultural tests. Just honest work for honest pay. Vexkoth nodded. That's why everyone wants to trade here now. The humans don't care what you look like or how old your species is. They care if you keep your word and do good work. More and more aliens were discovering this truth. The species that the council ignored or looked down on were finding new homes in human territory. Scientists, artists, traders, and workers from across the galaxy were making their way to human space. Dr. Sam Wright was busy on the frontier world of New Montana, working with a team of mixed species to terraform the harsh planet. His assistant was a Klaxon engineer whose people had been rejected by the council for being too primitive. The engineer's innovations had cut the terraforming time in half. How many more worlds are ready for colonization? The engineer asked, 15 this year, Sam replied. Maybe 20 if the weather control systems work as planned. Back in council space, the effects of humanity's silence were becoming impossible to ignore. The trading stations that humans had operated were empty. The scientific data that human researchers had shared was no longer available. The medical supplies that human companies had provided were running low. High Arbiter Quintal called an emergency session of the council. The great chamber felt empty without the human delegation, though few would admit it. The human withdrawal is causing disruptions across 17 sectors, Quintal announced. Their absence is noticeable. Zethkalar's tail twitched with annoyance. They will return. All species need the council eventually. But privately, even Zethkalar was beginning to worry. Reports from the border region spoke of human ships with impossible technology. Human colonies were expanding at an unprecedented rate. And most disturbing of all, species that had once sought council membership were now applying to join something called the Human Alliance. Elder Yixandra, whose colony ship had been destroyed while a human vessel watched, stood to speak. Her voice was heavy with grief and anger. My people died while human ships ran away, she said. But I have learned something troubling. The humans were following their new protocols. Protocols that treat council members as hostile foreigners. The chamber fell silent. We declared them unworthy of membership, Yixandra continued. So, they have declared us unworthy of their protection. For the first time in galactic history, the council was learning what it meant to be ignored by humans. And they were discovering that they didn't like it at all. Dr. Sam Wright stood on the edge of the cliff and watched the sunrise over New Eden. The planet had been a dead rock 18 months ago. Now, green forests covered the valleys below, and blue lakes sparkled in the morning light. The air was clean and breathable, filled with the sounds of earthbirds that had been brought here to make a new home. The atmospheric processors are working perfectly, said his assistant, Zara Voltic. She was a Mantori, one of the species the council had called too unstable for advanced technology. Her people had 6 arms and compound eyes, which made them excellent at complex engineering tasks. The council had been fools to reject them. How long until the next phase? Sam asked. 3 weeks, Zara replied, her translator making her clicks and whistles into human speech. The ocean seeders are ready to deploy. We should have a full ecosystem running within 6 months. Sam nodded. New Eden was just one of 37 worlds that human terraforming teams were working on. Each planet was a partnership between humans and species that the council had ignored or rejected. The work was going faster than anyone had believed possible. His communication device buzzed. Sam looked at the message and smiled. Good news. The Kovani just signed a defense agreement with the Human Alliance. Zara's compound eyes sparkled with what Sam had learned was happiness. The Korvani are excellent fighters. The council will not like this. The council has had a year to change their minds, Sam said. They chose not to. Meanwhile, Colonel Amy Foster was leading her team through the ruins of Haven Station. The mining platform had been attacked by pirates 3 days ago. The council forces had arrived 6 hours too late, as usual. But Colonel Foster's rapid response team had been in the area. Medics to Section 7, she called into her radio. We have survivors. Her team moved with practiced efficiency. These were not the old-style humanitarian missions that humans used to run. This was the new way. They helped anyone who asked, but only if they were willing to treat humans as equals. Colonel, said Sergeant Mike Chun, running up to her. The station manager wants to speak with you. The manager was a Dalgun, a species that looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard. His name was Tharkus, and he was bleeding from a head wound. You came, he said, his voice full of surprise. The council said humans no longer help anyone. The council was wrong, Amy replied, while her medic treated his injury. We help our friends. Are you interested in friendship? Tharkus looked confused. I do not understand. Amy sat down next to him. It's simple. You treat us with respect, we treat you with respect. You trade fairly with us, we trade fairly with you. You need help, we help you. You help us when we need it. That is all? Tharkus asked. That's all, Amy confirmed. No applications, no cultural tests, no membership fees. Just honest dealing between equals. Tharkus was quiet for a moment. The council charges us protection fees, but never protects us. They demand tribute but give nothing back. They call us primitive because we prefer simple solutions to complex problems. We think simple solutions are often the best ones, Amy said. Would you like us to help you contact the Human Alliance? 3 hours later, the Delgon Mining Consortium had signed their first formal agreement with humans. It was a simple document, written in plain language that anyone could understand. No fancy legal words, no hidden clauses. Just a fair deal between friends. Back in human space, Lieutenant Commander Nick Johnson was reading reports from across the galaxy. His intelligence network had grown larger than anyone imagined. Humans were good at making friends, and friends shared information. Sir, said his aide, Petty Officer Lisa Park, we're getting some interesting reports from the council borders. Nick looked up from his files. What kind of reports? 3. More species have applied to join the Human Alliance this week, Lisa said. The Vexed High, the Northern Republic, and the Free Worlds of Kepler. That brings our total membership to 47 species. Nick whistled softly. 47 species. In just 1 year. The Galactic Council had over 300 members, but it had taken them thousands of years to build that alliance. And most of those members seemed to hate each other. What about the Council's response? Nick asked. They're trying to block the applications, Lisa replied, claiming that joining the Human Alliance is an act of rebellion against galactic order. And how are the applicants responding to that? Lisa smiled. The Vextai ambassador told the council, and I quote, the Human Alliance has brought peace to our borders, prosperity to our trade, and respect to our people. The council has brought us only demands for tribute and lectures about our inadequacy. Nick laughed. I bet that went over well. The council is calling emergency sessions every day, Lisa continued. They're trying to figure out how to stop the human expansion without actually fighting us. Smart of them, Nick said. Our military reports show we're stronger than any single council member now. And we're getting stronger every day. On the trading world of Junction Point, Merchant Captain Tony Mitchell was negotiating a deal with a Polarian trade representative. The Polarians were one of the oldest council species, but they were beginning to question their loyalty. Your terms are very generous, the Polarian said. Why do you offer such favorable rates? Tony shrugged. Because we want to do business with you for a long time. If we cheat you today, you won't trade with us tomorrow. Better to make a small profit on many deals than a big profit on one deal. The Polarians' tentacles waved in what Tony had learned was their version of nodding. The council traders demand exclusive contracts and high fees. They say we should be grateful for the opportunity to serve our betters. We don't believe in betters, Tony said. Just different. You have things we want. We have things you want. Let's trade fairly and both get rich. 6 hours later, the Polarian Merchant Guild had signed a trade agreement with the Human Alliance. It was their first major deal outside of council space. The news reached the council chambers within a day. Eye Arbiter Quintal's lights flashed rapidly as the full scope of the situation became clear. The humans are building their own galactic community, Quintal announced to the assembled representatives. They have military alliances, trade agreements, and defense pacts with dozens of species. Zef-Kalar's scales turned a darker shade of yellow, showing his anger. Impossible. No species can build such influence so quickly. Apparently humans can, said Elder Yixandra. My sources report that human space is the most prosperous region of the galaxy. Their crime rates are low, their trade routes are secure, and their member species are happy. Happy? Zef-Kalar hissed. What does happiness matter in galactic politics? Perhaps, said a new voice, happiness matters more than we realized. Everyone turned to look at Council Member Veltar of the Centauri Republic. His species had been council members for over 1,000 years, but they had been growing restless with the council's endless bureaucracy. The humans offer something we do not, Veltar continued. They offer partnership instead of dominance. They offer opportunity instead of obligation. They offer respect instead of condescension. The chamber erupted in angry voices, but Quintal's lights pulsed in a pattern that meant deep thought. For the first time in galactic history, the Council was facing real competition, and they were losing. Fleet Admiral Greg Stone stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty and watched the hive ships tear through the Council fleet like paper. The ancient enemy had broken free from their prison in the dead zone, and they were hungry. Hungry for worlds, for resources, and for the life force of every living being in the galaxy. Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the Council, said Commander Beth Rodriguez. High priority, emergency channel. Greg almost smiled. 2 years of silence. From the Council, and now they wanted to talk. Put it through. The hologram of Council Prime Athander appeared in front of him. The tall, silver-skinned being looked desperate. His usually perfect robes were wrinkled, and his golden eyes showed fear. Admiral Stone, Athander said, his voice shaking. The Galactic Council formally requests immediate military assistance against the Hive incursion. We are prepared to discuss terms. Greg looked at the tactical display. 17 Council worlds had already fallen. Billions of beings were dead or captured. The Hive bioships were spreading like a plague across Council space. Council Prime, Greg said calmly. The Terran Federation does not recognize the Galactic Council as a legitimate governing body. We have no treaty obligations to provide assistance. Athander's face went pale. Admiral, please. This is not about politics. The Hive will consume everything if they are not stopped. You're right. Greg agreed. This isn't about politics. It never was. This is about respect. The transmission ended. Greg turned to his tactical officer. What's the status of our evacuation fleets? Captain Tony Mitchell's group is pulling civilians from Vorthan space, the officer reported. Captain, Steve Parker is evacuating the Polarian colonies. Captain Dan Foster is rescuing refugees from the outer systems. Good, Greg said. Make sure they only take non-combatants. No Council military personnel, no government officials. Just civilians. Commander Rodriguez looked troubled. Sir, shouldn't we be fighting the Hive directly? Greg was quiet for a moment. He thought about Dr. Carol Hayes, who had spent 3 years as a Hive prisoner. She had escaped with information about their weaknesses, their tactics, their biology. She had begged the human leadership to prepare for this day. The Hive is everyone's enemy, Greg finally said. But the Council made their choice 2 years ago. They said humans were too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous to be trusted with power. Now, they want us to save them with that same violence they feared. On the rescue ship UES Mercy, Captain Tony Mitchell was loading another group of refugees. These were Vorthan civilians, the same species whose representative had called humans tools in the Council chambers. Captain, said his medical officer, Dr. Jennifer Walsh. The Vorthan elder wants to speak with you. The elder was old. His yellow scales faded to pale gold. His name was Kethvar, and he had lost everything when the Hive attacked his homeworld. "Why do you save us?" Kethver asked. "My people have not been kind to yours." Tony knelt down beside the old Vorthan. "Because you're not your government. You're just people trying to survive. The council fleets are failing," Kethver said quietly. "Our warriors die while your ships evacuate our families. Why do you not fight?" "We are fighting," Tony replied. "We're fighting to save lives. That's what humans do." Kethver's black eyes were wet with tears. "Zeth Kalar was wrong about your people. We were all wrong." Meanwhile, the Hive continued their advance. Their bioships were living creatures, grown rather than built. They fed on the life force of conquered worlds and grew stronger with each victory. The Council had thought them contained, but the Hive had been planning and growing in secret for centuries. Captain Steve Parker was on the edge of Council space when he received an urgent message. The Hive had reached the Yix-Andra homeworld, the same species whose colony ship had been destroyed while humans watched and recorded. "Sir," said his navigator, Lieutenant Mark Thompson, "the Yix-Andra government is requesting immediate evacuation assistance." Steve looked at his orders. "Save civilians. No exceptions, no politics. Set course for Yix-Andra Prime. Maximum speed." 3 hours later, the UES Ranger was in orbit around the Yix-Andra homeworld. The planet was beautiful, covered in vast forests and crystal cities. It was also doomed. The Hive fleet would arrive within 6 hours. Elder Yix-Andra herself came aboard the rescue ship. She was the same leader who had spoken in the council chambers about humans abandoning her people. "Captain Parker," she said, her voice heavy with grief, "I must apologize for the things I said about your people." "No need," Steve replied. "You were angry. You had every right to be." "But I was wrong," she continued. "When my people needed the council most, they debated and delayed. When we needed you most, you came without question. The evacuation took 5 hours. Every human ship in the area joined the effort. They saved 3 million Yix-Andra civilians, loading them onto transports and sending them to safety in human space. 1 hour later, the Hive arrived and consumed the planet. Back on the used Liberty, Admiral Stone received reports from across the battle zone. The Council military was collapsing. Their ships were designed for intimidation, not real war. Their commanders had no experience fighting an enemy like the Hive. "Sir," Commander Rodriguez said, "Dr. Hayes is requesting permission to address the crew." Greg nodded. Dr. Carol Hayes had more experience with the Hive than anyone alive. She had been their prisoner for 3 years before escaping. The things they had done to her still gave her nightmares. Dr. Hayes appeared on the ship's communication system. Her brown hair was streaked with gray now, and her eyes held the weight of terrible memories. "I know what you're all thinking," she said. "The council rejected us, insulted us, treated us like children. Part of you wants to let them face the Hive alone." The bridge was silent. "But that's not who we are," Dr. Hayes continued. "We don't save people because they deserve it. We save them because it's right. The Hive will not stop with council space. They will come for everyone, including us." She paused, her voice growing stronger. "I spent 3 years learning about the Hive. I know their weaknesses. I know how to hurt them. And I know that if we don't act soon, there won't be a galaxy left to save." Admiral Stone made his decision. "All ships, prepare for combat operations. We're gonna war." The message went out across human space. The fleets that had been evacuating civilians began to form battle groups. The shipyards that had been building defensive platforms started producing warships. The human alliance prepared for the greatest battle in galactic history. But they would do it their way. No glory-seeking, no conquest. Just the hard, necessary work of stopping an enemy that threatened all life in the galaxy. The council had asked for help. They would get it, but they would also learn that humanity fought for principles, not politics. President Janet Brooks stood at the podium in the great assembly hall on Earth. Representatives from 63 species sat before her. But this was not the old Galactic Council. This was something new, something better. The Hive War was over. It had taken 2 years of brutal fighting, but the ancient enemy was finally defeated. The galaxy was safe, but it was also changed forever. My friends, Janet began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals who have survived the greatest threat our galaxy has ever known. In the front row sat former Council Prime Athander. His silver skin looked older now, marked by the stress of watching his civilization nearly destroyed. Next to him was Zethgalar, the Vorthan who had once called humans tools. His yellow scales were scarred from battle wounds earned fighting alongside human soldiers in the final campaign. The old Galactic Council believed that age meant wisdom, Janet continued. They thought that tradition was more important than innovation. They were wrong. Admiral Dan Foster stood at the back of the hall, watching the ceremony. His fleet had been the one to break the Hive's final stronghold. Human ships, fighting alongside vessels from dozens of species, had ended a war that could have consumed everything. We humans never wanted to be your masters, Janet said. We wanted to be your partners. We wanted to share the galaxy as friends, not rule it as kings. Dr. Alex Turner sat with the other scientific advisors. His xenological research had helped forge the bonds between species that made victory possible. The old council had studied aliens to rank them. Alex studied them to understand them. The new Galactic Alliance will be different, Janet announced. No species will be called primitive. No culture will be deemed unworthy. Every member will have an equal voice, regardless of how long they have traveled the stars. Captain Steve Parker was in the audience, wearing the uniform of the Alliance Exploration Service. His ship, the UES Horizon, was being prepared for a mission to make contact with a newly discovered species in the far rim. This time, first contact would be based on friendship, not fear. We have learned that diversity makes us stronger, Janet sighed. The Montari engineers who designed our new shields. The Polarian navigators who guided our fleets through unknown space. The Yxandra healers who saved countless lives. Every species brought something valuable to our fight. In the diplomatic section, Ambassador Yxthel stood to represent the New Order. She had been chosen not because her people were old or powerful, but because she was wise and fair. The alliance would be led by merit, not birthright. Some of you may wonder why humans are willing to share power after we could easily take it all, Janet said with a slight smile. The answer is simple. Power taken by force always falls. Power shared with friends lasts forever. Trader Vaxkoth nodded from his seat. His business had grown enormously during the Reconstruction period. The Alliance trade routes were the safest and most profitable in the galaxy. Fair dealing had proven more valuable than forced tribute. The Alliance will have no second-class members, Janet continued. No supervised memberships, no cultural compatibility tests. If you believe in equality, mutual respect, and peaceful cooperation, you are welcome here. Former Council Prime Athander raised his hand to speak. Janet nodded to him. Madam President, Athander said, standing slowly, I must ask the question many of us are thinking. The human military is the strongest in the galaxy. Your technology is the most advanced. Your economy is the most prosperous. Why do you choose to share these advantages? Janet was quiet for a moment, thinking of all the friends who had died in the war. Human and alien alike, fighting side by side against the Hive. Because strength without friendship is just tyranny waiting to happen, she replied. Because technology without wisdom is just tools in the hands of fools. Because prosperity without justice is just greed with better marketing. The hall erupted in applause. Even the former council members, who had once looked down on humanity, were clapping. Captain Tony Mitchell was preparing his ship for another mission. The UES Explorer would be carrying Alliance aid to worlds still recovering from the Hive attacks. The crew was mixed species now, with beings working together who had never spoken before the war. "Sir," said his new first officer, a young Vorthan named Kelthus, "the refugee camps on New Centauri are ready for the supply drop." Tony smiled. Kelthus was the nephew of Zeth Kalar, but unlike his uncle, the young Vorthan had grown up seeing humans as friends rather than threats. "Good," Tony replied. "Make sure the medical supplies get to the Yxandra families first. They've been waiting the longest." Dr. Carol Hayes was working in her new laboratory on the research station Harmony. She was developing new treatments for species that had been damaged by Hive bioweapons. Her team included scientists from 12 different worlds, all working together to heal the galaxy's wounds. "Dr. Hayes," said her assistant, a crystalline being named Chardolin, "the new neural regeneration treatment is showing promising results." Carol smiled. After 3 years as a Hive prisoner, she had thought she would never trust aliens again. But working with these dedicated beings had restored her faith in the future. The ceremony on Earth continued. Species after species stood to join the new Galactic Alliance, not because they feared human power, but because they believed in human values. "Today we begin a new chapter in galactic history," Janet concluded. "Not written by the oldest or the strongest, but by all of us together. The Alliance will face challenges, make mistakes, and learn from them. But we will face them as equals, as partners, and as friends." As the ceremony ended, Captain Steve Parker received his new orders. First contact with the Andromedans, a species that had just achieved faster than light travel. This time, there would be no intimidating council chamber, no lectures about cultural compatibility, no tests of worthiness. Steve would meet them in a simple human exploration vessel. His first words would be the same ones that had built the Alliance. "Welcome to the galaxy. We're all friends here, and we'd like to be yours too." The old Galactic Council had ruled through fear and tradition. The new Galactic Alliance would grow through friendship and respect. And at its heart would be the simple human idea that everyone deserved a chance to prove their worth. The galaxy had stared in horror as humans quit the negotiations. Now it watched in wonder as humans showed them a better way.